ReliaQuest mental performance coaches Dr. Nicole Detling and Derin McMains interview top performers across multiple industries to unpack the strategies and the mindset they use to get the job done. Welcome to No Show Dogs, powered by ReliaQuest. Hey, welcome back to the No Show Dogs podcast, powered by ReliaQuest. My name's Derin McMains, and I'm alongside my mental performance coach and co-host, Dr. Nicole Detling. Doc, what's going on?
Hey, having a great day. Today's a good day to have a good day.
It always is. And today's a monster, by the way. We got a monster guest on the show. We got Major League Baseball great, San Francisco Giant legend, Brandon Crawford's joining us today. Craw, what's up, man?
How's it going? Thanks for having me, guys.
Hey, contain your excitement just for a moment. I can tell.
Roll, homie.
No, hey, man, let me just read a quick high-level bio for those that maybe haven't followed baseball as closely as we all think they should. So Brandon Crawford played 14 seasons in the major leagues, 13 of those with the San Francisco Giants, played his final season with the St. Louis Cardinals. Just recently retired. He's a two-time world champion, three-time All-Star, four-time Gold Glover, even won a Silver Slugger, won a gold medal in 2017 at the World Baseball Classic. And what I think, I mean, if that's not as impressive enough, what I think is remarkable, man, is you have played the most games at shortstop in San Francisco Giants history. Like no one in the history of the San Francisco Giants has played more games at shortstop than you. Let's go, bro. Like, so hold on. But I mentioned you just retired. So that we got to start there, man. We're right here at the end of spring training. Season's about to start. Do you feel retired? Like, what have you been doing? How's retirement going?
I do, actually. And I think mostly just because I've been busy with the family and it almost just feels like an extended off season so far. But then we've actually gone to a couple of the games here, the Giants games here, because the kids have wanted to go. And I go back and my wife, Jalen, asked if I missed it the other day. And I was like, actually, no, not at all. It feels good. And it's like nothing against baseball, obviously. It's just like played, like you said, 14 years, a lot of games. And I was just ready to be done with it and ready to be at home and be with the kids and enjoying that part.
I got to say, that's huge because how many athletes retire at the wrong time and have a lot of regrets and they miss it quite a bit. And it sounds like you made the right decision at the right time. And that's really awesome. Congratulations on that.
Yeah, thank you. It's busy for sure. Probably even more busy than I was when I was playing baseball. You don't realize that when you're at the baseball field or in the clubhouse or whatever, it's like, yeah, you're busy-ish. You know, you're getting ready for your game or practicing or whatever. But being at home is a whole different monster.
Yeah, dude, you got 5 kids. Yeah. That's going to keep you busy.
A lot of them are in multiple sports, so
they
keep us busy for sure.
That's cool. How were you able to manage that, man? Like, I just know how involved you are with your family. I know being with you for some seasons, your wife would bring the kids on the road, like God bless her, packing them up and bringing them. And I think about like Baltimore specifically. I remember like just packing them all in and out of the car, going to the museums or the aquarium. I think I might've seen. And I'm like, look at Craw do it, man. And then you go play at the highest level in a major league game that night. Like how were you able to separate the two? Like how were you able to stay so engaged with your family and at the same time play at such a high level for such a long time?
In ways, I feel like it helps. It keeps you sane through, the ups and downs of a baseball season. And I think my wife was as good as anybody, if not, one of the best at bringing the kids when she could and, trying to have them be part of the whole thing of my career. And like I said, I think in ways it helps. Like, yeah, is it maybe tiring to get up in the morning and go to an aquarium before playing a big league game? Sure. But I think it grounds you a little bit, no matter how your baseball season or, the last few games have gone. Your kids are just excited to go see some fish with you at an aquarium. So I think that part, I don't know. I think it helps take your mind off of whatever else is going on the baseball field.
Yeah, that's great, man. I mean, I think about just the importance of being present wherever you're at, right? With like one thing we talk a lot about here is, let's chase work-life presence. Let's not chase work-life balance, because balance, right? When you're trying to balance things, it's like you're always in a state of tension versus, hey, let's just be fully present. And I can see as you kind of unpack that for us about how being with your kids, right, in this example, at an aquarium staring at fish, allows you to be fully present and enjoy that moment, right? Versus some guys, you sit in the hotel and you're thinking about your last 0 for 4 or, oh, shoot, who we facing tonight. And so I can see where that would be a ton of value, man. Reflecting on your career now, you have time. You have time to like really go, hey, that was a crazy career, man. Like, what are some things you're most proud of when you think about it?
I mean, World Series for sure. 2 World Series wins. Early in my career, my first full season, we won the World Series in 2012, and then a couple of years later in 2014. That's what you work all off season for. That's what you put in countless hours during the season, 162 games with all your teammates. So that's the ultimate goal. That's what you're trying to do. Going into each season is win the World Series. So obviously those are standout moments, or accomplishments that I'm proud of. And then, the individual accomplishments that you listed off before, obviously proud of all those. But I think, I don't know, just being available, I think all the time, especially early in my career, proud of that. That's maybe not as big of a thing nowadays with like the load management and everyone trying, which like, I'm not bashing that by any means. Obviously you want guys to be as fresh as possible all the time. But I think, part of what made me a consistent part of, the Giants throughout those years was my availability and just being able to play so many games and, like you said, play the most games at shortstop in franchise history. Especially growing up a Giants fan, like that's an even cooler accomplishment, I think, than maybe anything else.
That is, man, it's so wild. And you brought up a great point around availability. The best ability is availability. And I've learned that about players, coaches, leaders, right? And it's like, and then there's always the, conversation, at least in the corporate world, around like, well, there's boundaries and all that kind of stuff. And I'm like, yeah, but what I do know is like, in working as a coach and now myself, and I know Doc, you probably had this experience when you work, at least when I'm working with athletes in multiple sports, like I'll get a call, 2 weeks ago, Friday night, kid finishes a tennis tournament and he's like, hey, can we meet? I'm like, it's dinner time. But availability is the best ability if you're trying to coach at the highest levels, right? If you're trying to do it at the highest level. So it's like, yeah, man, let me scarf down this dinner. And then we met, right? And it's just part of it. So that's a great point, man. Really great point. 14 years, man. What would you credit your longevity to?
I don't know. First of all, just like loving playing the game. You don't stick around doing something for 14 years if you don't enjoy it. But then, obviously just a lot of hard work, consistently trying to improve and get better, because I feel like that was a big reason, was just like the kind of like need to improve and, want to be the best that I can be. I think that just takes your mind maybe off of other things. And like you said, I think staying present, like if you're trying to consistently just improve one day at a time, then you're able to kind of stay in that moment a little bit longer. And, and then all of a sudden, 14 years later, here you are.
This is awesome. So I love how you're talking about the longevity is loving playing the game and consistently wanting to improve. But I've never worked with someone who doesn't love their job, but still doesn't like parts of it. There are parts of it that can just be mundane and boring and something you hate. And here we go again. No matter how much you love it, there's always those moments. There's those times. Maybe you go through those periods where there are things happening that you're not necessarily loving. So how did you get through those periods?
There are definitely a lot of parts of those in baseball. You go through slumps or make some errors, or you're going through a losing stretch as a team. Like there are long road trips. Like there's plenty of things that are tough to get through. But I think a little bit what I was just saying, where it's like kind of living in the moment and just trying to improve that next day, and not really. Obviously you're going to think about maybe what just happened the last week or so and the slump that you're going into. But I think if you go into each day thinking like, okay, well, I'm going to improve on this aspect today. And, obviously baseball is a results oriented game. So it's frustrating if you don't improve, or at least statistically, it doesn't show that you've gotten better. At least going into each day, I think I was trying to improve on something every day. And I think with that mindset, it was just kind of like, okay, I'm going to, think about this today and not, whatever had just happened in the past.
I really love that. I love that mentality of being able to look past whatever the struggle is by just focusing on improvement. What can I get better at today? Even though I
Yeah.
might be in the middle of struggling, I can still improve on something. And seriously, I think baseball probably has more statistics involved than any other sport. And so you can always find something in there that you could get a little
Yeah.
better at, even if it's one of those statistics that just your team keeps on something that
Right.
seems random. There's still something that you could focus on there. So I love that
Definitely.
perspective.
Yeah, and I mean, I would even try, obviously I'm talking about going into each day, but with baseball, it's like you have to do almost like one pitch at a time because it's like, you make an error or maybe even you make a great play. Maybe you make a great play to end the inning and it's like, all right, like now I have all this momentum, I'm all juiced up and now I'm gonna, get this big hit. And there were plenty of times where that happened where it's like I made a good play to end the inning. It's like, well, now I'm going to come up and hit a homer. You have all this like excitement off of that big play, and then you swing it at first pitch in the dirt or something like that, where it's like, all right, I need to like focus back in, not think about what just happened. Like I said, whether it was good or bad, and just kind of lock back in and focus on that on the
I love
task at
that. And
hand.
you were able to do that pretty quickly, pitch to pitch.
Sometimes more than others, for sure.
Okay.
But that
Fair.
that was definitely always the goal.
Fair. How would you say other people could take that perspective and like, how can they train that? How can they get better at saying, okay, whatever just happened didn't go my way. How am I going to get better on the next pitch, the next play, the next phone call, the next meeting, the next whatever it might be?
That's a great question. I mean, I think some people are just naturally better at it than others. Like I think I've always kind of had that in me a little bit to be able to be like, all right, whatever just happen and kind of live in the moment. But I know there's other guys will use like breathing techniques or some sort of meditation going into games to be able to kind of click that on in the right moment.
It's good. Carl, I love what you just said. Like whatever happened just happened, right? To me, like I hear acceptance right away. Like, hey, I accept the fact that was good or bad. Doesn't matter. What matters most is this pitch, this game, this inning, whatever it may be. And ultimately we're talking about slowing the game down, right? And so let's talk about some clutch moments, right? Specifically two in particular. But let me tell you why I love baseball so much. For me, it is the one sport where the game decides who's going to be the hero, right? The game decides who gets the moment, right? In football, I get to draw up a play for my best guy, or basketball, I get to draw up a play, right? Soccer, I'm going to have these 5 people take the penalty kicks. In all these other sports, you get to pick. In baseball, the game picks. The game's going to decide in this moment, this is where we're at in the lineup, or maybe the ball's hit to this. You know how it is, right? You know these things.
Yeah.
So to me, that's why I love bait. Like you got to be ready. Like I don't care who you are, you got to be ready. And a couple moments. One, first of all, this blew my mind when I read this. You were the first shortstop in postseason history to hit a grand slam. Like that shocked me. Not that you hit the grand slam, shocked me that you were the first to ever do it. I'm like, wow, like that's
It shocked me
phenomenal.
when I first heard it after that game.
Right. So and the grand slam we're talking about is the wild card game, 2014, 4th inning at Pittsburgh. I mean, it's a one and done game, right? On the road, 1-2 count, bases loaded, place is out of control loud.
Yeah.
I think you get a little hanging slider, what it looked like, right? Kind of looking back at the video. And that's your grand slam. But before you talk about that, how you slowed the game down in that moment, I also want to go back to, I think you're the 6th player in Major League history to hit a grand slam in your first Major League game, right? So I imagine 2 moments there where it's like game has a real potential to speed up on you. And you were able to, in your first Major League game, slow it down enough. Giants were chasing 2 runs against the Brewers and you hit a grand slam in your first game. And then 2014, I think 3 years later, right? You're in the playoffs on the road, 0-0 game, 2 strikes, right? So in both of those moments, like how were you able to slow the game down so much and be clutch, man, and execute when the game called on you to execute?
I mean, I think a lot of it comes down to practice. First of all, it's just like I think if you practice the way that you want to play, then you're gonna feel like you've been there before in any situation, really. I apply this to defense most of the time when I'm talking to, younger infielders, who pick my brain about, playing shortstop, is that I always practice the way I want to play in the game. So I'm going at game speed, putting yourself in different situations, stuff like that. And I think that can apply to hitting also. If you take batting practice the right way, if you, train hitting, sliders and curveballs and stuff like that. And then just ultimately, I think at the end of the day, trust yourself to be able to come through in those situations. I think some of that takes experience in coming through, because it's hard to have confidence in those situations if you've never, done it before. So a lot of it is experience in situations like that and being able to come through and get the big hit or, home run or make the big play or whatever. And in both of those moments, my main objective was to make contact in the air to the outfield. So just at least just score the one run. So it was also in ways, I guess I was simplifying.
Simplify, yeah.
Especially once I got to 2 strikes in that wild card game, it's okay, see a pitch that, protect first of all, don't strike out, but then see a pitch that you can actually put the bat on and hopefully make good enough contact to get one run, and then fortunately both of them went over the fence.
Freaking launch.
That's so amazing. Congratulations. What great stories and experience for you. And I love this concept of simplifying, because so many people, and I don't care if we're talking about sports or business, but when they're under pressure is when their brain fills with so many things and they're trying to answer to all of these questions in their head and do all of these different things. And often the answer is to simplify it. What's the one thing that you have control of in this moment that you can take action on and do something about? And what you just described there is a perfect example of that. So thank you for that specification. I'd love to go into that's good personal stuff. And I'd love to hear more about some team stuff. So I'm curious. I mean, you've won 2 world championships with the Giants. You were on some great teams that didn't win championships. So I'm curious, what do you think the difference is between great teams and world championship teams?
I mean, I think a lot of it has to do with, getting hot at the right time. You see it so many times when, including when we won, especially in 2014, where a team will barely sneak into the playoffs, but they snuck in because they went on this crazy run at the end of the year. They're all feeling great and confident, and obviously just playing well at the right time, and then they carry that momentum into the postseason, and sometimes end up winning it all. In 2014, we got the second. Yeah, we were the second wild card team because Pittsburgh hosted. So they were the number 1 wild card team. We barely got in that number 2 spot. And I think the Royals did. The Royals were definitely a wild card team. They may have hosted, now that I think about it, but they were one of the wild card teams also. We end up meeting in the World Series. But yeah, to get there, it's we both had to play really well at the end of the season to be able to get in there, and then kind of just carried that momentum and, in ways kind of rode Madison Bumgarner in 2014 to be able to win that World Series. But you see it all the time. And I think a lot of times to be able to go on a run like that, you have to have great team chemistry, team unity, everybody kind of pulling together at the right time to be able to get through, whatever went on early in the season. As a team, you guys all kind of come through at the end to be able to, first of all, get into the postseason, but then continue winning once you get in.
Any advice for how to get there? How to provide that great team chemistry and team unity and pull it all together at that time? Anything you've experienced that you would say that you can put your finger on?
I mean, I know in 2012 and 14, Bruce Bochy, our manager, gave some great speeches. And I'm not necessarily one that's oh yeah, great speech, Bo. We're gonna kick our butts now. Yeah, that's not me necessarily, but especially in 2012, where I think Hunter Pence got a lot of credit for his speech and his rallying in the dugout and stuff like that, which was great. But Boch just always knew the right time to kind of he wasn't a big team meeting guy, but he would come out in the right time, always knew the right time to get everybody together in the clubhouse and give this speech. And he gave a good one in Cincinnati. We were down 0 games to 2, and we needed to win 3 in a row in Cincinnati, which they hadn't been swept the entire season at home. So, you know, it was kind of a tall task for us. And going into, I'm pretty sure it was game 3, he gave a good speech, and everybody was kind of just perspective check, I guess. And we ended up winning 3 games in Cincinnati. So to move on to the next round. So I think that has, you know, something to do with just kind of getting everybody's perspective maybe to shift, or getting just kind of that group mentality, you know, going in the right direction. Like I was saying, like just all moving as one, you know, coming from the very top, your leader, to provide that direction.
No Show Dogs is brought to you by ReliaQuest, a global leader in cybersecurity. ReliaQuest helps enterprise cybersecurity teams increase visibility, reduce complexity, and manage risk through its security operations platform, Gray Matter. Powered by decades of experience and streamlined by AI and automation, ReliaQuest exists to make security possible. Learn more at ReliaQuest.com. We've talked a lot about just the power of perspective, right? And when I think about team leaders and the owning your influence as a team leader, right? What that looks like. Speaking of owning your influence, like was there ever a time when you felt like, oh shoot, like what I say and do really, really matters at this point, right? Was there ever a time where you're like, oh shoot, I'm a dude, right? Like I've signed this big contract, or, you know, I mean, because this is always the paradox, right? There's a paradox of the humility of being great, which, you know, the humility is incredible. And I think that's what makes you so great and so likable and such a great teammate. But then it can work against you, because maybe you don't quite own your influence, right? You don't quite own your influence as you kind of evolve into that leader of the club. Like, was there a point where you're like, oh, yeah, I'm not that you're going to say this, I'll say it, but like, there's a point where you're like, I'm a dude now, and I got to like be very careful in like how I show up, what I do. I don't know. Like, was there ever that point in your career?
I feel like it took me a while to get there, but I can't think of a specific time where it was like it clicked, where I was like, oh, like people really look at what I'm doing. Yeah. I don't know when exactly I realized that, I guess, but it took me a while for sure.
But you felt it, right? I mean, at one point you felt it. You're like, oh, yeah, like,
yeah. Which maybe it was like, I don't know, like 2018. Like that was my second All-Star game. I started that All-Star game. Maybe it was around then. I'm not exactly sure. But I mean, I still feel like I didn't change what I did or who I was or anything like that either. Yeah. I was never that, you know, that Boach or Hunter Pence where I was going to get up and give this big speech. That was not how I was as a leader. I was definitely more of like a lead by example kind of guy. And, you know, one-on-one, individually, small groups, like whatever, like if they wanted to pick my brain about anything, I always wanted to be available and, sure. You know, be that guy also. But I was always just trying to, you know, like I said, I didn't change. So it was like work hard, put in my work during batting practice and you know, pregame, and then, you know, just try to play as hard as I could during the game. That's kind of who I was. I feel like
for sure.
I tried to be anyway.
Yeah, no, I mean, I saw it. Right. And so, but not everything's always been perfect. Right. And I want to tell a quick story about your professional debut in Eugene, Oregon. I don't know if you remember this.
I remember it.
You haven't blocked it out?
I remember it.
I'm not sure how many people got to see this, because this was before, you know, everything streamed and YouTube, but I just want to share this. We'll call it a memorable professional debut. So here, and I'm coaching in Salem, Oregon. We're all excited because I think we're in first place. We're battling for this playoff spot. We have a pretty good team, 2008. And we find out, hey, we're getting our 4th rounder, this shortstop from UCLA. Like, hey, this guy's he's a big league guy. Shoot his gloves already, big league ready. And we're like, oh, heck yeah, like so excited, you know? So we're in Eugene, Oregon, playing in Civic Stadium, opened in 1938, which means it's not in the best of shape, we'll call it, but it's a relic. I mean, it's a classic. Let's go. We'll go there.
Same grounds crew as 1938, I think, too.
Hey, so let me ask a question, though, because I was trying to decide, did you get hit in the face with a ground ball during batting practice because it was a bad hop, or was that in the game? Like, do you remember this? Because I was like, oh,
Getting hit in the face?
Well, like a bad hop, like it popped up and hit you.
I caught one like kind of like high chest, like collarbone almost. Yeah, during the game.
In the first 3 innings. So which leads to this awesome story. So here we are, all excited, huge expectations on this guy, right? Huge expectations. And we find out later, going into it, like it's your hometown team, like grew up a Giants guy. And I'm like, oh, like this is like storybook. I can't wait for this guy to show up. He'll probably hit a homer in his first at bat. Like this is just going to be so awesome. And it didn't go that way. In fact, you got neck balled on a ground ball. I thought it hit you in the face, but it hit you in your collarbone. And you went 0 for 2. And the reason why you only got 2 at bats is because the second one, and I remember in particular, it was like a rollover to the first baseman. First baseman flips it to the pitcher, pitcher's cover, and he runs into the baseline. You're like trying to avoid the guy because he doesn't know what he's doing. Well, when you're trying to avoid the guy, you step on the corner of the bag and your ankle just pops, right? And it's like, and as you, like me as a coach, you're like, heart goes in your stomach and you're like, oh my gosh, like we're so excited for this guy. Like, I feel so terrible for him, whatever. We go out there. Of course, you're done for the year. But I also want to add the rehab program that they put you on was because it was like late in the year, right? Signing was late or whatever it was. And so there really wasn't anywhere to go per se. And it's a sprained ankle, right? If I remember right, it wasn't broken, sprained. Yeah. So they're like, well, there's not much to do. You just kind of got to walk around on it. So literally your rehab program was like, just walk the warning track the rest of the year while we're taking batting practice, right? So
there were some mobilities in the training room, but then just walking the track during BP.
Yeah. So I bring this all up, and then you didn't get to play the first part of instructional league, but you got to play the second half, which is a fall development program for top prospects. But they wanted you to get more bats, so then they ship you to the Dominican in the winter, like November, right, by yourself, which at this time was like the first time guys were really doing that. American guys are doing that. Now I think it's more normal, right, because they see the value in that. But back then, I just remember thinking like, God. Anyway, so I bring all this up, and I'm just thinking, this poor guy, right? Like huge expectations, top pick, great player, 3 innings in, blows out an ankle after getting neck balled. His rehab program's walking circles during batting practice. How did you manage your thoughts and like manage, like, I don't know, like what was that experience like? Because obviously you rebounded nicely, right? And so you look at your career, you rebounded well, but the first couple months you're probably like, oh, this wasn't what I envisioned.
No, far from it. And I appreciate you leaving the other air out also, because there were 2 airs. Yeah. There's a slow roller that
no way.
I wish I could too. There's a slow roller that I threw to first that got away.
That like makes it even better. You're welcome.
But I think that goes back to kind of living in the moment, where like I said, I think I've always kind of just had that in me to be able to do that. Whereas like a lot of those moments right afterwards were not very fun. Finally getting out of that, like you said, towards the end of instructs here in Arizona, finally felt good enough to where I was able to play a little bit. And then I think I did fairly well the last like week or so. So I felt like pretty good about it going into the off season. And then, a week or so later after I get home, get asked to go to the Dominican. And my thought is kind of like, well, I didn't get many at bats, like they told me, and they want to see me, at the next level next year. And that's where I would, prefer to go, which would have been high A in San Jose at the time. And that's where I wanted to go. So I was like, all right, well, let's do this. Let's go to the Dominican. And yes, I think I was the first American player for the Giants to do that.
Yeah.
And went down there, and who knows, it could have gone a lot differently maybe if I didn't do well down there, but played really well, and I think got the respect of a lot of the Latin players down there. My first game I hit 2 homers, so it was like a little inter squad against them, and yeah, so it went well, and they were all like, "Oh, like it's this
This guy's all
American
right.
guy is
Yeah,
good."
he's
Yeah.
okay. Yeah.
So, and then playing with a few of them the next year, and just like getting that experience was actually pretty good for me. I think to be able to, like I said, get to know some of those guys and who I played with the next, a few of them over, even in the big leagues. But then getting those at bats and showing the Giants that I was willing to be able to, to go down there and do that, which goes back to the availability, I guess. Also, I think it was ultimately a good experience, as bad as it seemed at the time.
Yeah, so I'm curious about that because it sounds like hindsight's 2020, and now you can look at it and say, "Wow, that was actually a formative situation, and it was really
Yeah,
helpful for me." But given that first game was just not the way you wanted it, not even close, just really rough, it had to be challenging just on your spirits and on just your ideas and your dreams and maybe even a little bit of a confidence hit. And so I'm
yeah,
curious how you kept yourself in a good enough space mentally to be able to be available and say, yes, I'll go and yes, I'll do these things rather than, I don't want to say giving up because I don't think you were nowhere near giving up, but
yeah.
certainly having those moments of maybe I'm not as good as I thought I was, or I just got a piece of humble pie. What do I do with that?
I don't remember exactly, but probably a lot to do with the good support system.
Mm.
My girlfriend, now wife at the time, I think she was still in school, so she wasn't like physically there with me a lot of the times, at least right when it happened, but was there for me, emotionally or whatever, to be able to, talk to her and talk through, any doubts or whatever that I had. And then my parents also just being there in the same way. So being able to have that to fall back on, I think probably helped me get through that. And then teammates that I enjoyed being around, and even though I was just sitting there at the field most of the time, walking the track and going on the bus trips around the Northwest League. Even though I wasn't able to play, I still enjoyed my time with them, and I guess kind of takes your mind off of other things.
Nice.
That's good. And I think you left out just the great coaching that
Teammates and coaches is what I
Coach,
meant. Yeah,
thank you.
part of
Yeah.
the team. Yeah,
No, so,
All right, perfect
of
opportunity. I got
course.
to ask, and I don't know if this is going to stay in the clip or
oh,
not,
shoot.
but at least for our teammates, I want to hear what you think or how you felt about DMAC as your coach. How was he as your
I
coach?
mean, I didn't get to experience a whole lot.
So, but here, true. Let me tell you, here's the one thing that I said, and I don't even know if you remember this, but so I see all this unfold and I'm like, shoot, and they're carrying him out the field. I'm like, I just felt so bad for this guy because I like this guy. I'm like, I like this guy, And so I go down into like you got to kind of walk through like the stands a little bit and go down to this
Yeah,
nasty, gnarly training room where
yeah,
the training table is just outside of the toilet and shower combo, right? And it
yeah.
smells like
It was bad.
just old, right? Um, so I'm in this dungeon of a training room, toilet, shower place, and there's our guy laying there. And I just went up to him and I'm like, what do you say? And I'm a first year coach, right? And I'm just trying to like be real, but at the same time, like hopefully encourage him. I just said, hey man, can't get any worse. Like that's
I
all I
do remember
said.
that,
You do remember that? Yeah.
and I think I
And,
laughed.
yeah, you did laugh.
Okay.
Yeah, because
Yeah,
I'm like, I don't like what do you say? And I just felt so
yeah.
bad.
I had a
So anyway,
tennis
yeah,
ball in my ankle, and I was like, yeah, he's probably right.
yeah. Can't get any worse, man.
Yeah,
Everything's up from here, So um I want to share one more story because I know we're getting kind of towards the end of this. Because one thing that maybe you do get credit for this, I don't know. I feel like you should. Is like one of the things that I appreciated most about you is what a great teammate you were, and probably still are with guys that you're still with. But I got to witness it firsthand. And one story I want to share that it still blows my mind when I think about it. It's the 2020 COVID season. So we're in San Francisco in the bubble and we're having our spring training 2.0 or whatever you want to call it, where we go to San Francisco and we have about, 3 weeks or whatever to prepare pretty quickly for this season that is going to be played with no fans.
yeah,
This is also the same time where the Giants brought in a new staff, a brand new staff for you. First time you've ever experienced a new staff, right? You had Boch and everybody the whole time. So now Gabe Kapler's there and and his staff. And they brought in another player, Mauricio Dubon. Doobie, loved Doobie, right? Credible athlete, utility type guy. And they're trying to figure out like where they can put him. And the thought was he's going to go play shortstop. And I just remember thinking like, that's interesting, side note. But anyway, so there's one day in particular where they're working him out at shortstop with you, right? And this is not a knock on Doobie at all, but it's just like, here's at the time, a 3-time Gold Glover. You haven't won your 4th one yet, I don't think, but 3-time Gold Glover, been to a couple All-Star games, guy's pretty good. And this kid's trying to figure out a position. So listeners, you can imagine how this drill was going for Doobie, right? What it looked like. And I just sit there and I thought, I was just watching it. And then all of a sudden you stop the drill and you go start teaching him. Like you're teaching him like a better way to play shortstop. And it blew my mind. I'm in the dugout watching a guy give tips to another guy who's trying to take his job, which is not normal. And you walked off the field that day and I just grabbed you. And I don't know if you remember this, but I said, hey man, like I kind of walked through that with you. And I said, why'd you do that? And you just looked at me and you're like, well, I want to win. And that was it. And I was like, wow, man. So anyway, I share that story because to me, that's one of the most remarkable stories when it comes to like being a great teammate and being focused more on winning something bigger than yourself. But kind of with that, in your mind, what makes a great teammate? Can you teach those things, like just in your experience for all the different types of teammates you've had? But what would you say?
I think just being supportive, being humble, being willing to teach or listen or learn or, just be open to all different things, I think. And, it obviously depends on where you're at in your career. At that point, I had 2020 and 2021 left on my contract. They had brought in Doobie at the end of at the trade deadline in 19. So I kind of already knew where their thoughts were, I guess, and whether or not I agreed with them. As I liked Doobie, and he was a very good listener and asked me questions all the time. So it was like, I'm going to help this guy be a better shortstop. Doobie is a great teammate because he was, asking questions and wanting to learn, as a young player. And then I was trying to be a good teammate by being humble and knowing where I was at, career-wise, and knew that I had stuff that I could, I had things that I could help him with. So I think both sides of it, I think we were both being good, both being good teammates, I guess.
Can you teach it?
But yeah,
can you teach it?
Some more than others, probably. I think if you have good teammates when you're coming up, it's easier to be a good teammate yourself later on in your career. And I feel like I felt like I had some pretty good teammates early on in my career. You used me as an example there with Doobie, but Emmanuel Burris was the same way with me when I first came up. And, Manny was, short. He was drafted as a shortstop. I think he was pretty high pick too, supplemental or second round or something like that. And I think he was 1 or 2 years older than me. So like not that far separated in age, similar positions. And he helped me out with everything when I first came up to the big leagues, like with knowing to not be on that bus with all the veterans and come early on a taxi.
Yeah.
Or, stuff that the coaches would want to see me doing during practice and spring training. Like he was giving me all sorts of tips and stuff like that. So he was a great teammate to me early on in my career. So I think kind of having that foundation, it was easier for me to try to be the same way later on in my career.
It's great, man.
That's incredible. Yeah, it's incredible. Hey, on April 26th, the Giants are going to honor your career, which I'm sure will be extremely special for you and for your family. I'm just curious how you're feeling going into that here in a few weeks.
I'm sure it'll be a very special day and one that I'll enjoy looking back on. But for me personally, just like, that's not like DMAC, like that's not my kind of thing, like not my style, being like the center of attention for, however many people are going to be there, 40,000 plus, despite obviously every game we're kind of the center of attention, but like being there for specifically me and having to talk in front of all of them, most likely. I'm not looking forward to those parts. That's
Is
for
that going to
sure.
be more pressure filled than any of your World
Oh
Series
yeah,
games? Yeah.
than any game I played in. Yeah,
Wow.
that it'll be just because it's like baseball. I got so comfortable being able to play in front of big crowds, and big games and big situations and stuff like that. But not one for public speaking typically. So. So we'll see how that goes. But like I said, it'll be a very special day.
Yeah, and it'll be special for your family too, right? So it's
Yeah,
not just about
they're
you,
all
but
looking
about
forward
them.
to it.
Yeah, that's cool. That's cool. Well, we're getting up against it here, but I do want to ask our final question that we ask every guest. So our podcast is called No Show Dogs Podcast because we're not about looking good, we're about being good. It's about doing those things that are necessary in order to be good. And so our final question is, what were the things you were willing to do that others weren't that have helped you have success in your career?
I think just putting in extra work probably throughout, not just my like baseball career, but my life, like going back to high school. Like in high school, a lot of kids are, doing whatever Friday nights, like, hanging out, doing sleepovers, whatever. Um, and every Friday night I would go to the batting cages with the hitting coach. Yeah, I think from like maybe seventh or eighth grade through at least my junior year of high school, maybe even my senior year of high school. And so, I mean, from that to, like I was saying earlier, taking ground balls as game-like as possible. And I mean, you watched me during batting practice. It was consistent every single day, going out there and taking as many as I could during batting practice or sometimes before batting practice, and going at it at a high level, where it's not a knock on any individual, but you just see it around baseball where it's kind of like okay, it's like just taking ground balls and just very like lackadaisical. And I think what kind of separated me was going at it as game like as possible. And like I was saying before, it kind of puts you in game situations to where you don't really have to worry or rush or do anything that causes errors in game, because it's like you've taken so many ground balls at that speed already that you're prepared going into it. And I think that's just one thing, like I said before, like I always kind of preach that to the younger infielders.
It's awesome.
It's great, Craw, man. Thank you so much, man. Thank you for the time today. One, I know this is not kind of your bag, right? And so just thank you for taking the time to share, your hard-earned wisdom, your stories, and also thank you for the commitment to your craft, right? Because I can tell you, and maybe you're becoming more aware of it now that you're retired, but it's like the ripple effect of the impact that you've had on others, right? I mean, the impact you had on me and my career, right, forever changed because of the commitment you made to your craft and to your teammates and everything that you did, right? Because it's when you work for an organization and player development that wins 3 world championships in 5 years, 2 while you were there, like it changes, right, the opportunities that you have going forward. And so there's just a cool ripple effect that happens when someone is committed to excellence, how it impacts the people around them, right? And so I just want to, I don't think I've ever even told you thank you for that. So just thank you for that, and super proud of you, man, your career. I love the fact, like we talked before we came on air about you being at Disneyland with the kids. It's fun to see you being dad and showing up and doing all this stuff, because I know how much you love your family and how much you enjoy being with them. And so again, thank you for taking the time. And for those of you out there that are looking to follow Craw, just type in his name. He's Instagram. He's easy to find. I don't think we need to. I don't think it's hard to find you. So anyway, man, thanks again for coming on the No Show Dogs, brother, and go out and make it a great day.
All right, thank you guys. I appreciate it.